Today's episode is sponsored by Vitality Health RX supplements. Whether you're an athlete, a busy professional, or just someone looking to prioritize health, Vitality Health RX has what you need. With premium ingredients and rigorous quality control, their supplements support your body's natural function. As our topic today is all about adrenals, we'd like to highlight Adrenal Forte. The supplement contains a blend of adaptogenic botanicals and nutrients specifically formulated to counteract the effects of daily stress and support healthy energy levels. Adrenal Forte provides a unique blend of stress-adapting botanicals that support the body's resistance to fatigue and help maintain balanced cortisol and DHEA levels. Visit shopvrx.com and use code FEELGREAT15 for 15% off your first order. Thanks to Vitality Health RX for sponsoring this episode. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to the Feel Better, Feel Great podcast. Episode 105, Wired and Tired, Navigating Adrenal Fatigue in the Go-Getter. Are you a go-getter? Well, I'm kind of a go-getter too. My name is Dr. Andrea McSwain, and I'm an osteopathic physician. I have a clinic in Michigan, and I'm an osteopath, classically trained as a gynecologist, and then holistically trained, actually for quite a long time. So I want to tell you a lot about adrenal fatigue today, and I want to help you because you're the people who are getting the work done in the world, and you need to be the ones who are having that renewing well of energy so that we can make the world a better place. But before we dive into today's podcast, I want to remind you that I'm a qualified medical professional. The information shared here is intended for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for personalized medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So I want you to always consult with your healthcare provider for guidance to tailor your needs specifically. Now let's embark on this journey of health education together. If you're here, you're probably a go-getter, and you're probably dealing with some problems with go-getting, because there's always a good side of being the one who is the person people go to. I mean, you care about people, you're a high achiever, you want to make the world a better place. Sometimes you think maybe you're the only one that can actually make that happen. And that can kind of tend people to go a little bit into the downside of go-getting, which can lead to them feeling wired and tired. And that's when people start getting really exhausted. They get really fatigued. They're not really able to get out of it. So they're spending a lot of hours on the couch, and then they start kind of integrating their body into their mind and these feelings of, what is this all for? Why am I putting all this energy into this? And then feeling maybe that they're not getting that energy back for themselves to be taken care of. You're kind of losing that energy. You're losing those neurotransmitters that relay joy and happiness. And you're really going from, renewal, where you're just buzzing and everything's good, to depletion. So I understand when that happens. I have, as the physician at one of the physicians at the Michigan Center for Holistic Medicine, I have definitely seen hundreds of people who face burnout. And I want to say that, first of all, I recognize that. Second of all, I too want to help make the world a better place. And I too want to make sure that I can be able to have a renewing well of energy. And I want that for you too. So you please don't think I'm going to suggest lifestyle medicine factors here that are about like sitting for hours and meditating, or going and doing self-care activities that take days, hours, weeks, whatever, or just stop doing things. I just don't believe that that's the place that we should be at. I really think we should continue to challenge ourselves and grow, serve others, serve our community and our world. So I'm definitely going to talk to you about how to be able to handle it and how to be able to grow from it and be able to be more intense, because I think intensity is impressive. And I think that's what we want to do. So, definitely looking at how your energy is being expended and how it needs to be renewed. So if you're here today, thank you for being here. I really want to help you, because it's really a dangerous rabbit hole of when you go down and you keep losing energy and not getting it renewed. And really the source of energy is the adrenals in many, many ways. And so adrenals have a lot to do with our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. They are a very important gland. I'm going to talk about that. You might not know about that because if you're dealing with some classic, waiting for a diagnosis, adrenal fatigue is not going to be there for you. So in the segment now of diagnose and adios, really looking at, okay, what do we classically understand for some diagnoses related to the adrenals? Well, there's one, or there's actually two, and they're both very, very severe situations where the adrenals are just pumping out as much cortisol as possible. And we're seeing some long-term effects on the body and the mind. And those are often under that diagnosis of Cushing's syndrome or Cushing's disease. And when you think about the person who has that, they're actually usually connected to people who are taking steroids for a long time. And what happens is we see the long-term ramifications of high-dose cortisol on people's body. So that central thickening around their core, very thin arms and legs. Their skin has thinned into this striae. They bruise easily. Another thing you might see is the face is a moon face, right? So it's very large. And sometimes too, when I've met people with Cushing's, occasionally, because again, it's a very severe diagnosis, they have a handshake that's like a death grip. And that is because all that is surging through their bodies. Because not only is the adrenal responsible for cortisol, it's also got some other hormones, and I'll talk about that later. So this idea of kind of saying, okay, you have a lot of cortisol, let's get you to taper some of those cortisol meds. But if you have a lot of cortisol that's coming not from the medications of steroids, then most people look at some pretty significant things about their different hormones in their brain, and even some surgeries related to removing some organs, subparts in their brain. So I won't get too involved in that, because the point is, if that's not you, which most, thank God it's not, a lot of people it's not, but you're still really struggling, your test maybe with your classically trained doctor is just saying like, okay, your values aren't high enough, but you don't feel good, you're getting exhausted. And this kind of lends to the idea of adrenal fatigue. This idea, made very much more popularized by Dr. Wilson, a naturopath. This book is called Adrenal Fatigue, published some decades ago. Definitely disputed by conventional medicine, but that people got tired because their adrenals were fatigued. They were hyped up on adrenaline, and eventually they either couldn't make enough adrenaline, or they were doing so many things that their adrenaline, this idea of your adrenals with adrenaline, was getting really tired and kind of worn thin. So I do want to tell you that since Dr. Wilson's book, there's been kind of an upgrade in this diagnosis in the integrative and functional medicine communities called HPAG axis. I'm not going to explore that very often, but if you're hearing HPAG axis, that means your brain, hypothalamus pituitary components, adrenals, and gonads have an axis of neurotransmitters, neurohormones, and what they are doing is that they all can have a dysfunction. So it does take some time to wrap your head around HPAG axis and its dysfunction, but at some point in the future, I will come back to another episode on this and I will explain it, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. But with adrenal fatigue, I have seen hundreds of people in my practice who are really good people, PhDs and teachers and doctors and social workers and people who are leading companies, and they're exhausted. They're going into adrenal fatigue, and they're really not then able to function at the capacity that they want to, and it compromises the quality of what they can produce. And you just start to really hurt with adrenal fatigue because it does affect your body, your mind, and your emotions. Of course, when people go and they sometimes talk to their doctors about it, they're saying, I'm really feeling tired, and people run some tests and they look at your CBC and your CMP, and I'll talk about lab values another time. But, sometimes for people who I've met in my clinic, they are told, well, it's all in your head. And I would say that's a medical health myth. It is not all in your head. When your body is tired, your mind is tired, your emotions get tired. When you're told it's all in your head, it's interesting because we don't recognize adrenal fatigue necessarily. Why is it not recognized? Because we blame the person who has the problem. When it starts to go all in your head, it's starting to talk about, like, is it depression and anxiety? And people with adrenal fatigue are often turned to those diagnoses as the root of the problem, when actually they're just wearing themselves out. That goes into the topic of wired and tired. So I want to explain that to you, and then I want to give you some patient case breakdowns so that you can really understand what is happening with this idea of where you might actually be and you don't understand why. So wired and tired, people say to me, like, I can't sleep and I'm so tired, but I can't sleep. And I say, okay, well, that's awful. What is going on? How do you prepare for sleep? Well, I do some things that, yeah, I'm on the phone a little bit, or I have, my house has tons of LED lights. I brush my teeth right before I go to bed and wash my face. And then I get into bed and I take my melatonin or my magnesium or, any number of things that are all good, but I just can't turn my brain off. Well, okay. So you end up not sleeping because your brain is functioning. So that's how people get wired and tired, is they end up staying up because they're trying to process things mentally. And people are problem solvers. People with this aptitude, these go-getters, they really are very good problem solvers. But at night, how many world's problems can you solve? I mean, you really have to say, like, I need to sleep. So I like to suggest to people 2 questions. And then you're trying to solve problems that actually help you get to sleep. And the first is, am I cozy enough? So am I really moving around and finding a spot that fits? Do I need to add a little pillow here or shift over here? Maybe elevate my spot from my knees past my ankles. That's an important one. I'll get to that in another episode, but that's definitely making sure you're getting cozy. So am I cozy enough? Is the blanket right? Are my feet covered or not covered? What is it that you need? Is my neck comfortable and my head supported, or am I lying flat? What do I need? Am I all stretched out? And then the second one is, am I warm enough? Or am I cool enough? Am I the right temperature? So you can adjust that, right? Add a blanket, take a blanket off, whatever. And these 2 questions that you need to solve can actually turn your brain into answering them to help you sleep. So that's a very interesting situation when people come to me, just kind of using their brain as problem solvers to help solve their problem with sleep. The other pattern, is people who come to me and they say, well, I can only fall asleep every 2 or 3 days. So I'm awake for a few days and then I'll fall asleep. Well, what's happening is they're most definitely wired and tired. Their body is going, and then they get into bed and they're exhausted, but their brain is going. And so they're awake, and on that 3rd day, they just fatigue. They fall asleep because their body just shuts down. That's an example of wired and tired. This is where the adrenaline or the cortisol just really keep you going, and then you crash. So that going can last a few days, but then you're going to crash. That is not normal. That is not normal sleep. That is not normally being awake. It's that you get to a place of complete exhaustion and you're completely turning off eventually after those 2 or 3 nights of not sleeping, or 1 to 2 nights of not sleeping, I should say. So then the other thought here is, this doesn't always relate to just to sleep, about being wired and tired. So, I've had patients talk to me about, I'm made dinner for my family. I made a nice dinner. I enjoy cooking. I had the time. I go to, pass out the dinner, serve the dinner, and I just start freaking out. Well, I don't understand. I get really overwhelmed. I'm starting to get edgy, agitated, and here I was just making dinner. Well, if this is you, I want to just tell you that this is the cortisol and the adrenals, and the adrenaline rather, they make metabolites. So they convert to kind of make a waste to get it out, right? The hormone is a biochemical product and it has to be removed from the body. So at some point it ages and it gets tagged that it needs to be excreted, but it's not inert. It is still metabolically active, which means it can still make you spazzy. So you're making dinner, you're feeling calm, and then you get these little firecrackers that go off in your body, your mind. You feel, and then it's concerning. It's disconcerting because here you are doing something calming, but you're feeling edgy and you're thinking, what's wrong with me? And that's definitely where people can be told that they're feeling anxious. But from an adrenal fatigue perspective, especially with these go-getters, you're going to really feel like, wait, why did this happen? I should just be calm and relaxed. Well, it's because you've made a lot of cortisol and it's being broken down, but it's not getting rid of it. And that's where that can really make you feel disconcerted. Those are some tools that I wanted to say. Obviously, cortisol and adrenaline, which are secreted by the adrenals, can obviously put you in something that's called sympathetic overdrive. And I just want to spend a minute talking about sympathetic overdrive because sympathetic overdrive is your fight or flight response. And when you're in your fight or flight response, because your body's produced a lot of fight or flight hormones, neurotransmitters, you're going to stay in fight or flight, which means you're really going to struggle to sleep. You're really going to struggle to eat or even want to eat. And you're really going to struggle with being able to break down and digest your food if you do eat. And so then you have to understand that you're going to be wired and tired. And that is sympathetic overdrive. What we want to look at too is how to balance. When I say sympathetic overdrive, I'm talking about your central nervous system. How is your nervous system? Are you programmed now in your background? Messaging to yourself is go, 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 go. And I'm going to go fight or flight. I'm going to get going. I'm going to make things happen. That's really, the good side. But again, back to the bad side. I'm going, but it's 2 a.m. I can't turn my brain off. Or I'm going to have a calming dinner, but I can't get my body to stop having all these extra, cortisol shooting through me. So I'm not really digesting well or even listening to my family because I can't really hear them because I'm in fight or flight mode. Well, that's when the nervous system is completely geared towards that sympathetics. And we want to look at balancing that. Now, you can definitely have times where you need to be in sympathetics, but you don't necessarily want to be living in overdrive. That's what happens in the adrenals, and then that's how that connects to your central nervous system with your sympathetic overdrive. And the balance there is incorporating parasympathetics, which are your digestion, your sleep, and those activities are really warranted in your life so that you have balance between, you kind of go-getter sympathetic overdrive, and then you're feeling good, relaxed, calm, digesting, sleeping, renewing your well of energy. So there are some principles here that will keep you away from wired and tired. I want to talk a little bit about adrenal fatigue and what it means, and maybe share personal stories. So when I was in my 20s, 30s, whatever, I had a tremendous amount of reserve, right? People who are young, as they have a lot of reserve. So, if they don't sleep that well the night before, that's okay. They can usually kind of pop up and get going. They have to push through something, stay late at work, get going. Yeah, you can do that, right? And then pop back up and get going to work the next day. Sure, no problem. Let me do it. So, that comes with a youthfulness, right? Which we want. And we'll talk about that in future episodes, of course. And I know when I was young, I could go. I mean, when I was really young, I worked at the opera. I would work. I would attend the opera for work. I would go to the after party. I mean, it didn't really matter day or night. I could go have fun and I could recover and I could pop right back in. Even as an OBGYN resident and even working as an OBGYN, there was so much ability to go, and I would have ability to recover very quickly, and then the reserve, I'd be able to push through things. And so you might have had that, and that is the quality of youth. And we don't really recognize in the quality of youth that that is a quality that we are relying on that can be depleted. So when we're looking at depleting reserve and recovery, then we're looking at depleting our adrenals. But we can build that back. And that's what's fantastic. And, that's really when I spent a lot of time looking at my patients, looking at hundreds of their stories. And I was thinking, gosh, these are really great people, and we really need them to be in the world doing good. And a lot of times they're told to, take some anxiety depression meds, or they'll get over it, or, it's all in their head. But it's not, it's actually in your body. There's definitely a lifestyle component that has to be addressed in this. And this is a really important idea because there isn't something you can take necessarily. I mean, definitely there's things called adaptogenics. So I want to make sure you're aware of those. They are herbally based. And what they do is they help. If you're super high, they bring you down a little bit. If you're super low, they bring you up. So adaptogenics definitely have their place in supporting the adrenals. And those are things like ashwagandha and holy basil or tulsi, rhodiola, which is not my super favorite, panax ginseng. There's many, many, many. I actually really prefer when people get those in combination, unless they're using like a tulsi tea. But anyway, back to kind of building. So there's that aspect, sure, supplementation for sure. But when you build your toolkit for adrenal recovery and you are a wired and tired go-getter, I want you to first think about, like, I have a dog. He's wonderful. And most of the time, he just exists. And he's really proud of it. He doesn't have to prove his existence meaningfulness to anyone. He just lays there, and then he moves around, wags his tail. He just exists. So in your toolkit, just recognize that just existing is okay sometimes, and you really need to do that. The other thing is napping. I know most people say, I never want to nap. Napping is for old people, but recognize that cortisol actually, you start at a certain point in the morning, you spike about mid-morning, and you can progressively decline to the early afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m., and then you kind of decline even more until about 8 or something, and then you go to bed. So we are built on a pattern for cortisol. When you get too low in the early afternoon, which is what happens with most people, and then they try to push through it, they're actually further depleting themselves. A little nap, 20, 40 minutes maximum. You don't even have to go to sleep. You can rest, gently stretch. Some people practice yoga nidra. And in those cases, that's what I would call napping. You actually can help yourself recover a little bit so you don't just keep tanking, okay? And over time, not even over time, if you don't tank, you're not going to get into that wired and tired. So if in between 2 and 4, you take a little 20 to 40 minute siesta, and then you won't be going so low that you'll go to wired and tired. And this might be able to help your sleeping very, very quickly within a few nights. The next thing I want to talk about is balance. And with balance, I'm not in any way suggesting this idea of work-life balance. I love to work. I love to take care of my family. I love to do both of those really well. I think you need to go and solve the world's problems and get them addressed. So that means you're going to be tired sometimes, and that's okay. You do need to get out there and serve your community and serve your family and your own passions for why you exist on this planet at this time. So your passion, all those things, definitely though, you want to recognize when you need to turn it off. So that is sometimes where people look at moderators or triggers. So when is it that you're starting to go too far? When is it when you're losing reserve? Okay. I definitely want you to give it some definition. Find some times like, okay, if I have a difficult conversation with someone at this time, right? Or if I don't do so well, or if I get my work done at 9 o'clock in the morning and I cut out time to really create what I have to work on, and then I do the other kind of more, rinse and repeat stuff later in the afternoon, I feel really good. But if I try to take on a project at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that does not work for me. That's fine. Work the best you can to build your schedule around what works for you. But that's an example. But the idea is that sometimes if you feel really bad, what were the triggers that may have potentiated that? The other, which is actually what I really enjoy instead, is when you feel really good. What made you feel really good? Well, I did this. I had some plant-based greens. I had some phyto greens in my water. I, looked up to the sky. I felt really powerful. I smiled. I laughed. I had fun. And those are the things that are triggers and moderators for feeling really good. So there's kind of two ways to look at that. Now, lastly, if you're really feeling, this is, yes, you appreciate this idea of wired and tired. It is exactly you. You really don't know how you're getting through the day. The tip I would suggest most is categorize your daily activities into 3 tiers. 1, 2, 3, right? The ones have to get done. They have to get done. The 2s, that'd be a good idea if they got done in the next few days. And the 3s are like, that's optional. So do your tier 1s, make sure they get done. Then before you get into tier 2, say, how am I doing? Okay. And if you're like, maybe one of those things I could do today, do that. Go take care of yourself. And then continue into the tier 2 other activities if you have the energy later in the day. But let it go. And what happens quite often in my practice, actually, is when people do the tier 1s, they feel accomplished. They recognize, yes, they want to get more done, but they got done what they had to get done. Then they do a tier 2 and they're like, okay, pushed a little hard maybe, but I'm able to reserve. I've got some reserve for that, or I recovered quickly, or I could go home and rest. And then pretty soon people start completing tier 1 and tier 2, and they start getting into tier 3 more often. So this is reversible. You are fully capable of making this happen. Then I want to recognize a technique I want to teach you. It's from Heart Math, and it's very simple, but it's definitely uses the complicated biochemistry of the body. I teach it just subtly different because of my years in the clinic. The way Heart Math is classically taught is you put your hand on your heart, and that's fine. You want to feel the beating of the heart. I happen to like for people to put their hand over their abdomen and feel the beating of their aorta or the abdominal tube, because I feel when you put pressure on your heart and your chest, when you're having some, feelings and some emotional difficulty, this makes you feel very pressed on. It's up to you, either one. But anyway, if you do either one, if you want to do it with your 2 fingers by your radial pulse, then you can go right ahead and do that and feel that too. You just want to be connected to the beat of your heart. And then another thing I like to do is just start actually with a little bit of an exhale. So just a gentle exhale. You wouldn't think that you're supposed to exhale first, but I'll talk about that in another episode. And then inhale, and it's just very small. You can count 5 out, 5 in. We do that 5 times. Continue to feel your pulse. You can close your eyes if you want, or just let them fall and let them fall out and relax and release. Good. And what you'll feel is that as you connect to your heart connects to your thinking and calming brain. And all of a sudden, you're out of your fear brain. And your body might have a feeling of warmth or coolness as it bathes over you. Your voice might calm, as mine does. Your nose might take in a little gentle breath. And you're resetting. It does take all of about 45 seconds. You can program that at any different part in your day, whether it's, just sitting at your desk for a moment, and start to connect that to other habits, like right before you eat to help with digestion. So you get into that calming mode, parasympathetic mode, away from sympathetic, so you can digest better. Maybe do that before you go to bed. Maybe at night if you wake up, use that one technique. And if you rely on that one technique, I think it's going to serve you very, very well. So a word from our sponsors. The Feel Better, Feel Great podcast is brought to you by Vitality Health RX. At Vitality Health RX, we believe in the power of nature to support your health journey. Our carefully crafted supplements are designed to enhance your vitality, boost energy, and promote overall wellness. Our supplement highlight for this episode is Adrenal Forte. Adrenal Forte is a meticulously formulated supplement designed to provide a natural and sustained boost in energy without the jittery side effects associated with stimulants. This unique blend combines adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola and ashwagandha, known for their stress balancing properties, with essential vitamins and minerals that support adrenal function. By promoting a harmonious balance in the body's stress response, Adrenal Forte aims to enhance vitality, reduce fatigue, and foster a sense of sustained, calm energy for individuals seeking a holistic solution to their daily energy needs. In adrenal fatigue, there are sometimes tests done. Want to say, as I said before, classically in medicine, there's some different tests that are done, challenge tests that are done, 24-hour urine assessments to look at for a certain hormone level to see if that's really high. But the one thing, as I reiterated before, is cortisol patterning. So to understand if your cortisol level is good when you wake up in the morning, better about 10 a.m., dips about 2, and continues to dip about 8. So 4 different points. It's a diurnal pattern. And I like this one because it can actually kind of imagine how people are doing this. You test 4 points in the day, and it's a urine test. So it's a very quick test where you collect the urine. Some people do it different ways, but Dutch test does it, and I believe the best. And so you want to think about, okay, if it's good in the morning and it's higher, like the late part of the morning, it gets lower and then lower. That's like you're sitting up, right? So then when people have, so that when they get up, it doesn't really go up anymore. They look like they're kind of slanted. And then some people, they actually have almost like a flat line. And I think those are couch surfers. So that's when you're really tapped out on your adrenals. There's many ways to reduce it. I do want to suggest that if you are going to get the Dutch tests done, you want to do it with a functional medicine doctor who's preferably an OB-GYN. OB-GYNs did spend years learning about hormonal patterns in the body. So it's very helpful, but a lot of functional medicine doctors really understand how cortisol and their adrenals work in the body. But definitely you want a physician level to evaluate your Dutch test. In conclusion, we definitely discussed that there are a lot of things that you can do to understand your adrenals. Recognize that it's not all in your head. If you are struggling with these and some of the examples helped you, please let me know. If you have questions like, is this adrenal fatigue? I can't quite answer those questions, but our office has discovery calls. We're in Michigan. And there's other places that can answer who have functional medicine offices. You can search that on Google and look for a discovery call to ask about having a visit with a doctor to discuss adrenal fatigue, and ask them, do you recognize adrenal fatigue? Do you offer the Dutch test? Those are really good questions. And I just want you to remember that adrenal recovery starts with each small thing that you do. So make sure to reward yourself and tell yourself you're not just being a go-getter that's serving the world, you're actually doing what you can to help yourself. So take those small moments and just take a little breath, use your heart math, recognize your priorities for the day, for tiers 1, 2, and 3 if necessary. Make sure that your sleep is really valued. Use those questions, because you're a problem solver, to solve your problem of, are you cozy enough? Is the temperature right for you? And when you do that, you're really going to start recognizing what your needs are. What gives you a good day? What gives you a good moment? What allows you to have a happier life, a more fulfilling life? Because you're doing a lot to serve other people. And hopefully this episode today has been able to help you. Thank you very much.